Good morning, Grace Church. It's 8:15 somewhere, or whatever time it is, close to that. It's good to be together this morning. I'm Brad. If I haven't got to meet you yet, I'm looking forward to being able to be connected this morning, and looking for ways in which we can help you get connected and just be able to spend some time together this morning. I think the whole key of this whole virtual lobby thing is to be connected and get together here and talk. And so if you're there this morning, why don't you say hi? And I'd love to be able to connect with you. If not, just watch along with our service. I'd encourage you to, even if you could, if you're just joining on now, if you wouldn't mind in sharing our service on your Facebook, whatever Facebook is, or on any of your ways that you could normally share stuff. Just get the word out about service this morning, because it's going to be a good, hope-filled time today. And I think in our world that we live in, it's always good to offer hope in uncertain times and joy. And it's kind of fun to be able to focus on who God is, and through the songs and just the joy of that and all the good stuff that happens in our services. So good morning there, Jeffrey. I see you're on there. Good to have you today. If we can get going here. But yeah, it's good to be able to be in service together. I'm excited about today. It's been a great week here at our church. We've been doing a lot of different things. So trying to keep moving with what we can keep moving with. Trying to keep good morning, Jackie. Trying to keep moving with all of our fun stuff, and how do we keep doing the things we're doing. So we'll see in our service today. Make sure you check out a video about our Bible camp. This year our Bible camp was quite unique. Our theme was focus, about our only focus, and about being Jesus, of course. And we spent a lot of time together. So we had both a live in-person option, and then we had families that could, we had a way packet that they could download so they could do it at home. And so actually we had more people do it at home than we had show up with live, which was really cool. So I think we had 300 or so do it at home, and then we had about 200 throughout the week at our live programming. So it's been fun. It was a great week, and to see kids' smiling faces and to hear stories. So you're going to get to hear a lot about that during our service. We have a little video, little clip that you can see, and if you had a kid there, watch for their little faces on there. But you'll see some masks and those things remind you that it's 2020. But other than that, everything felt pretty normal. So the songs and everything were a lot of fun and all that stuff. Good morning, Beth. Glad that you're on here today to say hi. That's wonderful. Yeah, and if you're joining us to say hi, please. And I would encourage you, if you're on Facebook, especially hit that share button. And if you're watching us on the live stream, maybe send out that little, copy that link and send it out to some people who not in an awkward way, but could use some encouragement today. So Pastor Jeff's with us today. He's going to share a little bit more about our series Stops Along the Way. And it's hard to believe it's August already. I know we're in the second weekend of August now, and it's been a great summer. A lot of ways to be outside and a lot of sunshine. So I saw a lot of people out and about yesterday as I was bouncing from place to place. A lot of the parks are busy. People are out on the sidewalks walking and talking and finishing up some yard work or whatever they're doing now. So I maybe think about what you were doing this weekend. Anything fun? Anything good time? So I don't know. It's just a great way to be able to spend the summer together. So make sure you just thank the Lord for what God is doing here amongst our children and our Power Kids. We saw about 10 children come to know Jesus that we know of this past week, which was incredible. So if you had any part in that, thank you. And if you have stories you'd love to share, man, reach out to us. Reach out to Christy Keir here at church. She'd love to hear any of the stories you have about ways that your family was engaged with it or ways that you were able to do different things. It's a great thing to be able to celebrate together. So it's also a good weekend for our middle school programming. So today, August the 9th, we have we're making a shift in our middle school programming. There's still some connect groups that are happening on the weekend, connect group styles where they can learn a little bit of a middle school's version of theology, ever from that to sixth graders as they move up. Today's our moving up weekend, but as they move up, they can learn what it looks like to be a sixth grader in middle school ministry. And then tonight at our Montrose building, that's where I'm sitting right now, 565 South Cleveland Maslin Road there in Akron here, right just north of Copley, right now, Copley Fairlawn area. If you are interested as a middle schooler, or if you have a middle schooler, or if you have a random middle schooler running around that will jump in the car with you later, you can drive them over here. That might feel weird to do that part, but other than that, all the other things are normal. But bring them here tonight at 5:30 to our Montrose building. They're going to have their first overtime weekly. So every Sunday night from here on out until something else changes, they're going to have a middle school programming. So the team, Pastor Todd and his team are so excited about it. It's going to be a good time. It's really going to be a good chance for them to get together. So they take all the precautions they need to with it when it comes to getting students together. But there's not too many places right now where people can get together in a safe way for middle school kids. And so if you have a middle school student, you might know what it feels like for them to feel a little lonely right now or lack a connection. But this would be the place to be. So if you feel comfortable sending them, send them. If you don't feel comfortable yet, of course, there'll be always online options that they can watch. But look for ways to get them connected, because I know with a middle schooler, as they're thinking about school right now, things feel a little strange. Their sports are a little bit on, in uncertain times. What's going to happen in the fall? They keep trying to play different things, and we'll see what happens with all that. And whether that's a good idea or not, and that's not what we're here to talk about, but I'm just telling you, middle schoolers are feeling that uncertainty, or maybe it's just a lack of friendship that they've had, especially maybe they're 14 years old, 13 years old, not able to drive places yet, and relying on parents to get them places and making connections, and are not seeing each other in normal ways. It's been hard for them. So I'd encourage you, look for ways to get them connected. So whether it be showing up in person tonight at 5:30 for the overtime weekly, or just look for ways to get them connected online. Reach out if there's ways we can help you with that. We'd love to be able to get connected with you and get you going here. We really want to reach out and help any ways that we can. So good morning, Diane in Hilton Head. Wow, Hilton Head, man, that's nice. I could be at Hilton Head right now. Well, I wouldn't be at church though. This is where I really want to be right now. But Hilton Head would be fun. Love the beach, and I love the ocean. And the ocean feels great in August. I really enjoy it this time of the year for sure. So yeah, just looking for ways. I would encourage all of you look for ways for yourself to get connected. We have a bunch of things that are happening here at the church that you can go through and find out about on our app. So I'd encourage you, just go to our website, or you can use our app, but go to our website, go to bath.gracechurches.org, and you can just go right on there and click on the weekend experience. And if you click on there, you can see all the ways to get engaged and get connected with what we have going on. There's a bunch of stuff. In fact, I'll pull it up here myself. If you look at the weekend experience page, you see right on there. Well, first of all, you can see when all our times are. But if you click on the weekend experience, you see there's the online service. You can download our app, do a connection card, do our giving. But then you see all the Power Kids and middle school stuff. And then also last week's series message if you missed it, or the past week. So a lot of different things you can do on there. And that page is on there designed specifically to make sure that you, as being a person who's joining us online, can stay connected and stay encouraged throughout the week. Because following Jesus isn't just a 1 hour a week experience. Following Jesus isn't just something we do when we think about it on the weekends, but He gives us the opportunity to really get going with all the different things that we have going on here. So ways to get connected. So yeah, so Jeffrey, Joe's not doing the pregame today. He's not here. He's not here today. You'll see him in this service a little bit. Sorry, it looks like you're still having some technical things. Can't see the video next to the chat. I'm sorry I don't know how to navigate that there. So maybe it's on the phone, or if you're joining us that way. But really the best thing to do is just listen anyway, because I look much better whenever you can only hear me than if you can see me. So even if you put your phone down or the computer away, you can still hear me, which is okay. No, but in all seriousness, we'll try to get you figured out there. But if you keep thinking about the weekends and the different things. So yeah, so summertime. So yesterday I had a good day. I was able to just hang out with my boys. We just did some running around, did some errands and those things. But I was reminded yesterday of the importance of quality time with our family. We didn't have anything big scheduled, but was able to have a few moments, a few hours there where we could just connect and do everything from working on odd jobs to running around and having fun and playing games together and stuff. So really tried to capture those moments. It was just a good Saturday yesterday. The weather was nice, wasn't too hot. But I mean, I like the heat anyway, but it's good. So I'm not sure what everybody else did, but if you enjoy the sunshine, you are loving life right now. If you don't enjoy the sunshine, hang on, it'll go away. It'll go away before you know it. Fall will be coming. And so, yeah, a lot of good things are happening. So there's ways to get, ways to get outside and enjoy yourself. Feels like a lot of people are kayaking this summer. Seems like every other vehicle I see on the highways or whatever on Saturdays, it feels like it's always, the boats on there, kayaks. I went up to the park the other day, up to the ledges. If you're ever looking for a good walk, that's a nice, beautiful area. Sometimes you can forget that you're in Ohio. Whenever I was a kid, I thought Ohio was just cornfields. And then once we moved to Akron out here in 07, I learned there's a lot more to Ohio than cornfields, that's for sure. But the Ledges is a great place up in the national park. But boy, I was up there Friday and it was packed full of people. But the nice thing is it's big enough that you can be away from people too. You can have your own space up there for sure. But it's a nice place to picnic out in the grass there. A lot of good things that are happening there. So good morning, Lynn. Glad you could join us this morning. I see you on our live stream there. And Jim, you're joining us from Denver. So it's really early for you out there. So thanks for being with us this early this morning. You started off right. Talk about natural beauty. Colorado has some great natural beauty out there. That's for sure. Good morning, Bill and Michelle. Thanks for jumping on with us this morning. It's great to see you and great to have you join on here. Just keep checking on these different things here. Good morning, Kirk. Glad you could join us here on Facebook too. And Christina. And Diane, it's going to be a good morning, that's for sure. So I'm glad we could all be together. But yeah, I don't know. I think all the different things that these uncertain times have produced in our culture, I think one of the good things is people get outside a lot more. I feel like I was talking about up at the park, how busy it seemed up there. And then just seeing people out boating a lot more with their kayaks and biking. I see like people are biking all the time, so it's great. One of the big things that Tara and I, my wife and I, started doing is trying to take walks as many days as we can. Just towards the evening, you get a couple miles in there, just be able to spend some time together. That's been fun for us, and it's cool to be able to be out and about. So maybe you found some new things that can keep you going and that you can really enjoy. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff that's happening. So we're going to get going here, and if you just have a few minutes left. But I would encourage you, get comfortable, not too comfortable, but maybe try to focus in on the service. I know multitasking is the thing to do a lot of times when we watch something on video, but I'd encourage you to kind of dial in for the next hour and see what it is that God does. I think whether it be through music, through when we sing together, what's great about doing the singing online. Maybe you don't feel good singing out loud, or maybe you do. Maybe you feel comfortable with that. But what I appreciate about it is I read the words to the songs and just kind of go along and just let them kind of speak to my heart and kind of get my mind set right. And so as you be able to spend some time there at the beginning of the service doing that, I encourage you to focus through that. And even thinking through, ways that you participate with the church, thinking of ways to get connected. We always have an opportunity for you to give. You can give right there on our app, or, even on our, you just write through, the website through GraceLink or any of those things. There's even text ways to give, different stuff like that. But I encourage you to look at the app for help with that too. But if you could, but then during the message, to see what God really does and how He speaks to our heart through that. Anytime I think we fix our eyes on Jesus and we spend our time focusing on Him and what He did and how He walked on this earth, I think we can't help but change and be kind of brought to a crossroads, because a lot of different things of the religion are out there. But boy, when you get our eyes just fixed on Jesus, kind of cut through all the mess and just get our eyes fixed right on Him, it's really unbelievable how just different He was and is, and how other, and really just otherworldly. And He wants to be our King and our God, which is awesome. So I encourage you just to spend some time over the next hour, just marinate right on what is it God's going to speak to your heart. Focus in, just try to give your attention to it, so that you can see what God's going to do. And then also look for ways to get your family connected. Maybe if you're having, maybe your child's just going off to college this weekend, or maybe the next week, or maybe you have people from other parts of the world. Online is a great way to share that, and just share a service and just send it out around, and have fun, and just be able to see what God can do. So. And Becca says about all the dogs are so happy. I do see people walking dogs a lot, and people are or I see them barking a lot too. So. It all depends on which dogs there are, right? So we see people, it's been cool to see everybody outside. So hi, Patty, nice to see you this morning on here. So get comfortable, jump in, and we're going to see what God can do for us, in us, through us even today, and ways to get connected. So dial in real close, gather everybody up, grab that nice cup of coffee or tea, or whatever cold drink that you have, your water, whatever it is. Maybe you're sitting out on the patio or at the beach, or maybe you're in your living room. But enjoy it. You're really going to love the video about Bible camp. Just watch the kids on there. It's hard to see a lot of smiling faces because of masks, but you'll see kids on there having a lot of fun. So we're going to have a good time today, and I'll see you when the service wraps up. All right, talk to you later.
Hey everyone, welcome to Grace Online. My name is Pastor Joe, and if we haven't had the chance to meet before, I'd love to do so even virtually. Go ahead and reach out through our direct messages. You can even find me on social media, but I'd love to meet and chat if you can. Thanks for joining us wherever you happen to be sitting right now. I want to make sure that as we're getting kind of logged in here for our weekend services, that we are ready to go. First thing you're going to want to do is hit that share button. Let your friends and family know what you're up to right now. Let them know about the things that you've been discovering at Grace Church, and invite them to be a part of that community, so they can experience the hope and the message of Christ as well. As you got that mobile device out, go ahead and open up or download our app. You'll see lots of ways to take next steps, whether it's jumping into virtual groups or figuring out what things are in person or available to you, even to make an impact around the community. Check out those things. You always want to make sure that you're dialed in to the rest of the life of what it means to be a part of Grace Church. You'll also see a connection card there. If you need to take a next step, or you want to reach out to someone, whether it's for prayer or just to ask questions and figure out what might be best for you, utilize that tool to reach out to the leadership, and our team will be back to you as soon as they absolutely can. And of course, you can send us a direct message as well, and we'd love to engage you right there. And if you're live, hit up our host. They'll talk with you as well. And of course, being a part of the family here at Grace, one of the ways to be a part of the church, we are the church, all of us together, is to actually respond through giving. God is a generous God, and the things that He has provided to us are in part ways for us to continue to care for others and continue to see the momentum of the movement of the church continue to move forward, that the ministry and the hope of Jesus can impact the families that are here as well as all over the community and around the world. And so you can give by going online. You can also text the number on the screen. Whatever way you want to give, you can be a part of the community that way and continue to see God work in many, many people's lives all the time. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, as we're kind of wrapping up this week, it's been an awesome one for us. We've been in Bible camp, some of us here on site, some of us at home. It's been an amazing week. That's even what these balloons are for. It's been a fun time. Let's go ahead and check out this update as we see what God has been doing with Bible camp this week.
Hey everybody, we have had an excellent week here at Bible Camp. We saw over 300 kids participate at home, watching Bible stories and dancing with Sally Scooter. And we had about 200 kids come to the drive-thru and hang out in the church with our volunteers, singing, having a blast, doing crafts. We saw several kids make a first-time decision to follow Jesus, which we celebrated with them. We're so thankful for Bible Camp. We're so thankful to be able to see some kids in person, and we're looking forward to what's next in Power Kids.
So this year, when I found out there was going to be a virtual option for Bible Camp, I kind of knew right away what I wanted to do. And I invited some neighborhood kids to come over, and we've just done Bible Camp all week on my driveway. So we've done worship and Bible stories, crafts, games, activities, just had fun hanging out together. It's just been a really great week, and just so thankful that God would give us the opportunity to do this.
Hey Grace, so glad you're here with us. Encourage you, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, come sing with us.
Well, thanks for joining us at Grace this weekend. So glad that you guys are able to be here. I want to thank you for always making the effort to click on your phone or your iPad or TV or whatever that you're doing and taking the time to be a part of your church family in this way. I'm grateful for that. Things with COVID make everything harder. And I'm watching that all through the church. We've had sports camps and Bible camp these last few weeks. I've watched like our volunteers and our staff just work hard, right? They had to change everything and wear the mask and do the protocols. But God uses that. He uses that. We're looking at almost 50 kids accepting Christ this summer so far. We're looking at God working in people's lives in big ways because we push through it. That's one of the things we do here at Grace. We do hard things. And this is hard, and everything from serving to being consistently connected is hard. So thanks for taking the time. Thanks for your financial support, making things all happen here. Please continue to do that. But thank you for being a part of what God is doing and being engaged with it. We're in a series right now called Stops Along the Way, and what we're doing in this series is we're looking at kind of the 12 main disciples of Jesus, and we're watching how they picked up his heart and his mind. And really what they would do is kind of hang out with Jesus, and he would stop and show them, or stop and do a miracle, or stop and deal with something. And as they went along the way with him, it kind of dawned on them. They caught who he was and what he was about. So much so that all of them gave their life for him, except for Judas. And God allowed them to know him and understand him in that same way. And that's what he would say for you and I. It's not a book. It's not a class. It's knowing me, walking with me, understanding me. And it's how we come to a full understanding of the heart and the mind of God. We've taken several stops along the way. Those stops are on the website, podcast, on the app. The stop this weekend is we're gonna look into the book of Matthew. So if you got your Bibles, Matthew chapter 16. If you don't have a Bible out, get one out. Take notes, go along with us. This is on the app also. But Matthew chapter 16, and we'll pick up kind of their journey and the pathway in verse 13 of chapter 16 of Matthew. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say that I am?" And Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Drop down to verse 21. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." And Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. But whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world but forfeit their soul? Or what can someone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with angels, and then he will reward everyone according to what they have done." And on this stop along the way, Jesus is pressing into Peter and the disciples, and through the scripture, through you and I, and he's really kind of pressing and saying, how do you see me? How do you view me? And who's going to define this relationship? Now, let's kind of stop here for a minute before we dig into it, because I want to talk about something that would have been running through the disciples' minds that was really affecting their answer and their conversation with Jesus. And as we walk back through kind of what Jesus said to them and why he said it, you're going to see this surface quite a bit. So it's kind of a big piece to lay down out the gate. He asked them the question, who do you say that I am? They said, well, some say a prophet, this and that. But he's like, what about you? And Peter says, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So let's talk about this idea of the Messiah for a second. Because that word and that concept of a Messiah would have been something that the disciples thought about a lot. And they would have had a lot of opinions and ideas and expectations about what the Messiah was going to do. So the Messiah means savior or deliverer. And they would have grown up hearing that word and understanding that concept, but they would have heard about it in the context of kind of their earthly circumstances, right? So in the ancient Jewish world, especially maybe to young Jewish men, right? Guys in their late teens, early 20s, the firebrand of every culture. When they heard or thought about the word Messiah, they would have thought that through a political or earthly context. When they thought about a Messiah, they would have thought about kind of their normal frustrations, right? So they're in a culture in which their nation and their kind of nationhood is oppressed by the Romans. So they have the Roman government, is an invading government, they're ruling Israel. In between like the people and the Romans is kind of a politically elite class of Jewish leaders. Pharisees, teacher of the law, Sadducees, all these guys. They were kind of a go-between in some ways. And the disciples would have looked at those Jewish leaders, the tax collectors, all those guys. They would have thought of them as corrupt, right? So they would have thought of the Romans as oppressors, the go-betweens as corrupt, and then them as like the oppressed people who suffered injustice, suffered at the hands of corruption, etc. And by the way, they weren't far off. They were analyzing that pretty correctly. So when they thought about the idea of a Messiah, they would have been thinking about someone who was going to alleviate all of that. He was going to come in. He was going to reestablish Israel's past glory and power. He was going to rule on the throne of David. David was like a big king historically in Israel. He was going to reestablish the splendor and the wealth of Solomon, same idea. And the Messiah, he was going to boot out the Romans. He was going to drain the swamp of the Pharisees, Sadducees, tax collectors. And the people were going to be rescued or delivered and ruled over justly and reigned over in like an ethical kind of a way. And all of the disciples would have grown up in that culture and would have had that context of who the Messiah was and what he was going to do. So that makes Peter's answer to Jesus fascinating, right? Who do you say that I am? Peter says, I'll tell you who I say that you are. You are the Messiah, that loaded word, right? You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. Jesus looks at Peter and says, Peter, good job. You're the Messiah, nailed it, the Son of the living God. In other words, Peter was looking at Jesus and saying, Jesus, I actually believe you're God. Like I saw the fish, I saw the miracle, I saw the girl raised from the dead, like I'm in. I believe that you're God. Jesus commends Peter for that and says, Peter, good job. That's not something you just came up with on your own. God helped you to know that, right? And so he kind of gives him like the gold star for that. And then as Jesus moves the conversation forward, you start to look and see, well, wait a minute. Jesus knows that Peter still has this packed definition of the Messiah. So Peter, I'm the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus, in essence, is saying here in a minute, he's going to say, what do you mean by Messiah? Because I have a definition for it. And do we line up, or are you bringing your definition of me forward into our relationship with each other, right? Jesus sensed that Peter had created kind of a personal narrative about what it meant for Jesus to be God. And with that personal narrative, he created kind of personal expectations about what God was going to do in Peter's life. And he kind of pauses here for a second, and he's, in essence, he's going to say to Peter here in a minute, let's make sure that you're embracing who I really am, not who you want me to be, right? Now, before we get like too judgy on the disciples, because Jesus is going to do this with all of them. You'll see here in a second. He's going to do this all with them. This is what I would kind of put out for us to think about together. I don't believe that Peter and the other disciples, I don't believe there was something like wrong with them or hard-hearted or closed-minded about them. I believe that they are figuring out who Jesus is. They're making these stops along the way. And that when Peter says, you're the Son of the living God, Jesus is like, nailed it, Peter. I'm not one of these other prophets. I'm not a spiritualist. I'm not that guy. I am the Son of the living God. I am God himself. But Peter's definition of what that meant was still incomplete. He's still a person. He still has a background. He's still a human being. And the great temptation of every human being is to bring their desires for God into their definition of God, right? It's nothing new. It's nothing unique. It's just a temptation that we wrestle with. I'm reading a book by Thomas Jefferson right now, and Thomas Jefferson is a really fascinating guy. He's something very unique guy. First Secretary of State, third President of the United States, wrote the Declaration of Independence, wrote the Declaration of Independence for France, was an inventor, on and on and on and on. Really, really fascinating guy. And one of the things that I've learned about Thomas Jefferson that's fascinating about him is that he wrote his own Bible. He wrote his own Bible. What he did was he actually ordered 2 different copies of the Bible, the identical copies. And then he went through those copies and he cut out the parts of Jesus's teaching that he liked. In fact, this is what they look like. This is actually one of those Bibles. And he literally went through, we would say with an X-Acto knife is what we would say today, and he cut out the parts of Jesus that he liked. He left the parts of Jesus that he didn't like in, and then he took those slivers of the Bible, those kernels of what he believed to be truth, and he put them into his own book. He put a book together called The Philosophies of Jesus of Nazareth. And in his philosophies of the Jesus of Nazareth, what Thomas Jefferson did was he used Jesus's words to create his moral code. So he used Jesus's words to create his personal moral code. In other words, Thomas Jefferson looked at Jesus and said, I want Jesus to be this. I'm going to use his own words, and I'm going to shape him into who I want him to be. And then the Jesus that I created is the one that I'm going to consider to be the right Jesus or the morally correct Jesus. It's the same temptation that Peter was struggling with. See? Because it's not a Peter temptation or a Thomas Jefferson temptation. It's a human temptation. I like these aspects of who you are. I mean, I've seen it. I've been around it. It's incredible. Peter would have had all that in his background. But I have something that I want. I want my Messiah. And I want you're going to knock out the Romans, you're going to do this, and you're really God. You have the power to do that. Jesus looks at Peter and says, you're right, kind of. Like, you are right. I am the Messiah, the Son of the living God. But let me press into what you think that means and make sure we're on the same page. After that declaration, the Bible says this: from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised again. So Jesus senses that there's this preloaded definition of what the Messiah is, and that all of those disciples, kind of by no fault of their own, they're not being stubborn, they're not being hard-hearted, they were just raised to believe this. They have their own personal definitions, and they're reading him into them, see. So he kind of pauses here for a second. He says, let's clarify this up a little bit. From that time on, let me tell you what's going to happen. I, the Messiah, we're going to Jerusalem, but there I'm going to suffer and I'm going to be killed. That's what's going to happen when we get to the capital city where the throne of David would have sat and where Solomon would have ruled from. I'm going to suffer and be killed. Now watch this. This is fascinating. Peter doesn't like this. Peter, who just got the gold star, he doesn't like this. And he took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. That's gutsy right there. Like, I believe you're God. Now let me tell you what's wrong with you, God. See, I believe, who am I, Peter? Oh, I know. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Peter, that's true. But you know what, God? God, you have it wrong. God, you have it incomplete. God, you're laying this out incorrectly. He didn't question Jesus. He rebuked him. Peter took him aside and rebuked him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. Peter pulls Jesus aside and says, no. That's not what's going to happen. See, you're the Messiah, but I have a definition of what that is. So what we're doing, Jesus, we're going to Jerusalem, and you're going to dethrone the Romans, and you're going to drain the swamp, and then we're going to rule together in Jerusalem and make things right. That's the play. You are not going to suffer, and you're not going to die. See? Because that's not how I see God playing out as I have prescribed it to be. And Jesus' response to Peter is really strong. He turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, Satan." He just got a gold star, and now he's getting called the devil. So get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Jesus looks at Peter and says, no. That is not how this works. Get behind me, Satan. You have human concerns. You had a definition of Messiah, what you wanted to happen, the parts of who I am that you like and appreciate. You've taken those out and put them in your own personal book, and then looked at me and said, "Hey, God, you have to do my book." In fact, you rebuked me. God, you're wrong. This is the book. This is the way that this is going to play. And Jesus looks at Peter and says, no. That's not what we're doing. You're thinking through your own human concerns, what you want to happen. I'm thinking about the broader picture of what I've come to accomplish. And then Jesus does something interesting because he knows that all the guys are kind of on the same page. So then he said to his disciples, let me be clear. He rebukes Peter, but he instructs the other disciples, right? He looks at Peter, get behind me, Satan. And he looks at everybody else. He says, okay, guys, listen up. I want to be clear how this works, all right? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. He looks at the disciples and he says, guys, listen, I know that you all have in your mind who the Messiah is and what he's like. You have your own personal book that you've pasted together. But let me clarify, it's not your book, it's my book. It's what I say, see? So if you want to be my disciple, it's not God empowering what you cut and pasted. If you want to be my disciple, you deny yourself. You take up your cross and you come and you follow me. See? Because I am the Messiah, the actual Messiah based on my definition, and I am the Son of the living God. And I find it fascinating that Jesus caught this, right? He rebukes Peter, he puts him in his place, but to everybody else, he kind of looks at them and says, guys, let's take a second here. Let's take a second. Because all of you have in mind that I am who you want me to be. But that's not how this works. I am who I am. And who I am is who my disciples want to become. That's how this works. Take up your cross and follow me. Now, I think one of the reasons why Jesus was kind of gentle with them here is because he understood their temptation. Remember, they believe he's God. Nobody is like, you're not God, Buddha's God. That's not what's going on. They believe that he's God. They worship him. They trust him. They love him. But Jesus looks at them in kind of a gentle, instructive way and says, guys, I know that, but we got to be clear. Because a natural human temptation is to create, cut and paste your own version of me, and then ask me to endorse that. In fact, use my words to endorse that, so that your truth is supposed to be my truth, and your opinion is my opinion, and your goal and path is my goal and path, and you want me to be who you want me to be. In fact, so much so that you'll rebuke me, like Peter did. My God would never. My God wants me to be the God that I know about. See? And Jesus will look and say, I'm not really completely honked off about that. I want to be really, really clear. Because if that's who you've made me to be, that's not one of my disciples. That's not how they function or how they think. Now, when you think about this and you think about that temptation is true for all of us. Peter, Thomas Jefferson, Jeff Boak. It's true of all of us. But when it plays out in a incongruent lifestyle, a lifestyle that doesn't really make logical sense, because we apply parts of who Jesus is to who we want him to be, and then the parts that we don't want him to be, we just leave alone and put back on the shelf, right? That process, yielding to that temptation, is how you take like a Thomas Jefferson, who would write like the Declaration of Independence, and in there would put in God truths, right? So here's a God truth for you. All men are created equal. That's a God truth. That's a biblical truth that's in the Declaration of Independence that's written by Thomas Jefferson. So how can a guy who believes that, and everything I read about Thomas Jefferson, I think he believed that, How can he believe that all men are created equal while owning over 100 slaves and by fathering 5 children with a woman that he owned? How does that mix? See? Well, it doesn't. But how did Thomas Jefferson make it mix? Because he cut and pasted. See? So all men are created equal means all white men are created equal. All men that are like me who are oppressed by a government that I don't like, they're created equal, but the men that I oppress, they're not equal. See? It doesn't make sense. It can't work together unless you cut and paste. And we would wrestle with this ourselves, right? It's the same kind of thinking that would cause us to look and say, okay, I believe that God is God over nature. And because God is the creator of nature and the sustainer of nature, nature should be valued, right? So natural law, we should let the environment be what the environment is. We should take the dams down and let the fish flow. We should value animals. Don't abuse a dog. Don't abuse a horse, kind of thing. And actually, those are some biblical truths. God is the God of nature, and human beings are the stewards of nature, and we should be responsible for nature. We should care about it. That's a biblical truth. But the same thought process that would lead us to that, we would say God's the God of nature, but my natural biology is not God's business. I will choose my gender. I will choose my orientation. Those are my personal decisions. But that's not logical. If God's the God of nature and we're a part of nature, isn't he God of us too, then? How do you rectify that? Well, you have to cut and paste. It's the only way to do it. See? It's a logic that would look and say, God values every human being. Every human being is 100% valuable to God. Every human life is valuable to God. In fact, so much so that when COVID-19 hits the planet, we should shut down our economies, shut down our societies. Everybody should wear a mask. It's the only loving thing to do. And I would argue that when a statement like that is made, there's a lot of biblical truth behind it. Like God does value, if you were the only person on planet Earth, Jesus would have died for you. There's a lot of biblical truth about that. So we can look and say, human life is that valuable, but we can say that and then in the next breath say, unless that human life hasn't left the womb yet. So we can abort millions and millions of children while saying every human life is absolutely valuable. How do you make that work? Well, you can't unless you cut and paste. If I said to you, God is a God of power, and he has power over your life and power over your circumstances and power over your health and power over your finances, and God can provide for you. Many people would say, I believe that part. Oh man, I believe that part. God is a power. God can heal. God can change. God can restore. He can restore an addict to a healthy person. He can restore a broke person to a financially solid person. He can restore a sick person to a healthy person. That is phenomenal. And by the way, all of that is true. And if God can do those things, he can save your marriage. But I don't want it saved. Well, wait, but God can't do that. But he can save your soul, right? Yeah. Well, then he can save your marriage. No. Well, how do you make that work? See, you can only do that if you cut and paste. And Peter was tempted to cut and paste. Thomas Jefferson yielded to the temptation to cut and paste. And Jesus looked at all of his disciples and said, guys, listen, I know. I love you for who you are. I'm not mad. I just want to be clear, see, that my disciples are not cut and pasting people. My disciples follow me. I wrote it in the notes this way, that your definition of who you want me to be does not change who I am. That's what Jesus was saying to Peter. Peter, when you say, you're not doing that, you're not suffering, you're not dying, I'm rebuking you of all things. Peter is like, stop it. Your definition of who you want me to be does not change who I am. Who I am defines who you want to be, Peter. Peter, the conversation is not whether I'm going to suffer and die and whether you think that's right or you think that's wrong or you think that's what God should do or not do. That's not the conversation. The conversation, Peter, is that when you share in my sufferings, will you suffer and die for my name? I define you. You don't define me. And then Jesus looked to the other disciples around him and he says, guys, let me just clarify this. My disciples deny themselves. They don't deny me. They deny themselves. Thomas Jefferson, if you want to be my disciple, you don't decide which parts of me you like or don't like and leave the parts in that you like and take and paste the parts that you don't like. You don't do that. Thomas Jefferson, the parts of me that press against the parts of you, you yield to me. When you read my word and you read my truth, and you find out that your views on slavery are sinful and wicked, you don't edit those parts of me. You deny your truth. You deny your opinion. You deny yourself, not me. Jesus says that's what my disciples do. My disciples take up their cross and follow me. Thomas Jefferson, listen, buddy, when you find out that what you think and how you live and how you run your economy, a slave economy, is wicked and sinful, you free your slaves. You free your slaves. There's a cost to discovering me. And you read the book, and that's the kind of things that I would teach you in the book. You know it, Thomas Jefferson, because you said all men are created equal. But in the slave economy of that time in our country, it would have ruined Jefferson financially. Take up your cross. You would choose your farm over your soul? See, my disciples deny themselves. They take up their cross. The consequences of following me, they'll own and live with and deal with, and then you lose your life. Thomas Jefferson, it's not your truth. It's not your opinion. It's not even what is culturally accepted in the moment, because all of that was fine in the moment. But you encountered me. I define you, you don't define me. You deny your opinions and your truth. You take up your cross. Well, Jesus, this would wipe me out. It would change my life. It would alter my relationships. Right. And you lose your life. My life will never be the same. I would have to have all new friends and a whole new economy. Yep. Because none of those things are worth your soul. And when we cut and paste our Messiah, we wind up with these very conflicted lives. These biblical truths that will apply to parts of our lives, but other biblical truths that will push all the way out of our lives. These parts of Jesus that we cling to and long for and hang on to, and then these parts of Jesus that we resent and ignore, and we wind up with these deeply conflicted lives. And the only way for us to satisfy that conflict is to either deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow Christ, or to cut and paste. To cut and paste. And Jesus looked at Peter, and he looked at the other disciples, and he looks at me, and he looks at Thomas Jefferson, and he looks at you, and he would say, guys, I love you. I believe that you believe in a God. Thomas Jefferson believed in God. He was a deist. But I'm not a God. I am God. I'm the Son of the living God. And my disciples, they follow me. If you're a cut and paster, I love you. But you're not my disciple, because that's not me. If you're a life layer downer, if you're a self-denier, if you're a cross carrier, that's what my disciple is like. Now, guys, I want you to grab this a little bit, because I think Jesus' tone is really important here. He's not just launching on his disciples. He's not like, you dummies. He's not doing that at all. In many ways, he's engaging their humanity, where he's looking at them in essence saying, guys, I know that you struggle with this temptation. I just want to be clear. I want to be clear. And what's fascinating is this was actually a turning point in Jesus' ministry. A bunch of people started to fall off. And it really boiled down to 11 of the 12. Judas, of course, went down a different path, but the other 11 of the 12, they bought all the way in, and their lives were marked with denial and cross-carrying and losing their very lives, because they looked and said, he is the Messiah, not the one that I made up, the Son of the living God. And we love him, and we believe him, and we think he's right, and we know he's God. And they're about halfway through their journey here. So Jesus is looking at them and saying, guys, I know, and you're working this out. It's okay. It's a lot. It's a lot. You're working this out. But my disciples work this out. See, the Bible says it's working our salvation out in fear and trembling. My disciples work this out. They don't cut and paste. They wrestle, they question, they try to understand, they think, they even challenge at times, but they follow. They follow. So Jesus would look at me and he would look at you like he did Peter and Thomas Jefferson and everybody else in human history. And he would look at us and say, what about you? What about you? Who do you say? Who do you say that I am? Are you saying what I'm saying? Who do you say that I am? And this is what I find. I find that I am faced with that question 1,000 times a day. There is the grand proclamation that I believe you're the Son of the living God. I believe that Jesus is God. I have staked my soul and my life on it. And I bet you have too, maybe, or you're thinking about doing that. But I'm faced with that question all the time, because every time I'm tempted to cut and paste, I'm wrestling with that answer. I'm tempted to rebuke Jesus. You're not that, you're this. You're what I want you to be. And Jesus, with love and with mercy and grace and understanding, would look back and say, from this point on, let me explain this to you, right? Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and come follow me. Jesus, we love you. We're frail, we're tempted. Life seems easier, living a cut and paste life. That way nobody really has to be disagreed with. A lot of tension can be relieved. But Jesus, would you draw us close to yourself? Cement our faith. Help us to receive and embrace your heart and mind, so that regardless of the circumstances, regardless of cultural changes, regardless of whatever day and whatever age that your disciples live in, we would make that great confession that you are the Son of the living God, and we will follow you. God, in these still moments, convict us, challenge us, encourage us, and reveal yourself to us. We love you, Jesus, in your name. Amen.
Trust in his righteousness alone. Faultless stand before the throne. Let's sing this together wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Christ alone. Thanks for being here. Have a great week. We'll see you here real soon.
Well, what a great service that was, and great challenge from Pastor Jeff as we think about the call of following Jesus, what true discipleship looks like. I know discipleship is kind of a church word, but the act of becoming and being like Jesus, and then helping other people to know that hope. And it's interesting how Jesus went about it, but then as he addressed Peter and his interaction, I don't know about you, but there's some good conviction in there for me, even of ways that I try to make Jesus who I want him to be, rather than really just following him and becoming who he's called me to be. So if there's any way we can help you get connected with, or help you with that, just click on the connection card tab at the top on the live stream, or reach out to us via Facebook, even direct message, or on the app through the connection card. There's a lot of different ways, but we love to get connected with you, because really that's what we're all trying to figure out, what it looks like to follow Jesus and how we can become like him and not get confused by all the other messages and all the other things that are out there in this world, but to become like our Creator and our God. If we believe he's God, and we want to let him impact us and change us forever and ever. So what a great thing that we get a God who's drawn near to us, and he wants to work in our lives. So hopefully today will be a good day for you, but if there's ways we can help, we'd love to partner with you in that. So we're thankful for you. We love you at our church here. Glad that you're part of us, even if it's just joining us online. Welcome. I'm glad to help you any way we can. But pray that God will do great things in you this week, and that this week will be a week in which you run after Jesus. And if you're still exploring Jesus, I would encourage you to dig in and really look to see if he is who he says he is. And if he is who he says he is, what does that mean for your life, and what does that mean for you today? So, well, I hope you have a great day. Great being able to spend this hour with you. If I don't see you before, see you next week. Thank you.